Everyone knows that feeling, wanting to experience more stories, but struggling to find the time. That's where Audible changes everything. With over 1 million audiobooks and Audible originals, there's a story waiting to spark anyone's imagination. Take The Paris Apartment by Lucy Foley, the gripping psychological thriller that's keeping listeners on the edge of their seats. Imagine unraveling its mysteries during your morning commute, or losing yourself in its twists and turns while doing household chores. That's the magic of Audible. It transforms daily routines into opportunities for thrilling discoveries. The best part? Members get access to thousands of included titles, with new content added regularly. From bestsellers to hidden gems, every genre imaginable is at their fingertips. And with one easy-to-use app, switching between favorites or discovering new passions has never been simpler. There's more to imagine when you listen. Start a free 30-day Audible trial and get your first audiobook free at audible.com/Wondery. That's audible.com/Wondery.
Now it's time for Inspirational Women, and my guest, Liz Kleinrock, an anti-bias, anti-racist educator, consultant, and facilitator for schools, organizations, and companies across the country. Liz is a transracial adoptee who was born in South Korea and grew up in Washington, D.C. Liz has written a number of great, relevant books, and today she joins us to discuss her latest book that's written in collaboration with Caroline Kusin Pritchard, titled What Jewish Looks Like. Liz Kleinrock, good morning. Thank you so greatly for being with us today.
Thank you so much, Kate, for having me.
Well, I am excited that we've had this opportunity to get together once again, which I think attests to the fact that you are just so talented. You have so many stories that need to be shared, and you just have the talent to be able to do that. So here we are with a brand new book that we get to talk about what Jewish looks like. And this really does look exciting, and it feels exciting. I imagine that's right where you feel with it, too.
Yes, very much so. It feels very surreal, but I feel like I've also been just so fortunate to be able to write these types of stories, and I cannot wait to share this with the world.
So you have a co-author with you sharing stories in this book, Caroline Kusin Pritchard, and who was going to join us, but sadly she had to succumb to illnesses that the children brought home, which is a whole other story, right? So together you collaborated on this marvelous book, What Jewish Looks Like, right?
Yes. Yep. She's absolutely incredible. And this book would not be what it is without her.
So did you know each other already for some time before you came to this collaboration?
You know, it's so funny. We were saying that we should make up a more exciting story of how we became friends. But we have known each other for a handful of years, but we actually first connected just through social media. Like we followed each other on Instagram. I think we realized that we had really similar interests and work and values. And what started as, exchanging messages on social media platforms blossomed into like a real life friendship. And she was living in California at the time when we met, and she and her family moved to the DC area. So now I get to see her in person all the time.
That's exciting. You know, what's really quite exciting about that is the fact that there's such a positive connection as a result of social media. I mean, we hear kind of negative stuff that goes on, but this is wonderful that this really huge relationship and the work that you're doing together resulted from that initial connection.
Yes. And when I reached out to her about collaborating on this book, we actually hadn't even met in real life yet. So it was quite a risk. But I definitely think it paid off.
Well, you probably had a sense of it. You had this feeling, right, that, oh, this is the right person to do this kind of work with. So
yes, absolutely.
You had the inspiration for it.
I did, yes.
Okay. And shared it with Caroline, and she totally bought into it.
Yeah. A little background about that. I was actually at a writing retreat for authors in Pennsylvania, and admittedly was procrastinating on something that I needed to turn in to my agent. I do really great brainstorming when I'm supposed to be doing something else. And I had seen for such a long time all of these really beautiful biography collections, books like Little Black Leaders and like Notable Native Folks and like Rainbow Revolutionaries, that really amassed like these beautiful collections of individuals within a specific community, highlighting like their similarities and their differences, and had just wished, wow, I really wish that there was a book like this that centered the Jewish community. So I texted her this idea and she immediately said, yes, let's do it. And within a couple of weeks, we had put together a proposal. We talked to our respective agents and had put this concept out on submission. And we're extremely fortunate that there was almost immediate interest in it. And fast forward like 2 years, and here we are. We're at a publication date.
So you said 2 years. That's when you started collaborating and tossing the ideas around and beginning to shape it and form to become the book that we are going to see launch here at the end of September.
Yeah, it actually comes out on Tuesday. I'm not sure when this will air, but on Tuesday the 24th, you'll be able to find it everywhere.
Right. All of our favorite book sources and stores. I would imagine you wouldn't even have to ask for it. Unless it sells out, then you'd have to ask. Order me my copy.
I'll dare to dream. I hope we're in that predicament.
Yes, absolutely. So that answers a question in terms of how this will be. Just in general, this is a very important work and really highlighting just such a broad spectrum. You have 36 leaders in various fields that are highlighted. So we're going to be able to connect with one, well, I'm guessing much more than just one person as to what they've done, or we resonate with it, right?
Yes, absolutely. This is the type of book that I wish I had as a child, and frankly, still need today as an adult. Because we're on radio and people can't see what I look like. I am Korean American. I'm a transracial adoptee. And so growing up in the Jewish community in Washington, D.C., I never saw anybody who looked like me. I spent pretty much my entire childhood and some of my adulthood also just feeling like this square peg trying to fit into a round hole, and constantly trying to prove to people that I was Jewish or Jewish enough or that I belonged, and not having to defend or explain why I was in Jewish spaces. And I realized the older I got that I think my Jewish education just had really been lacking. Everything that I had learned about Jewish people and history and identity really focused on Ashkenazi Jewish culture, Jews who had migrated through parts of Eastern Europe and Russia, who present or identify as white now. So I know like the terminology can be really different depending on who people are and how they see themselves. But there really wasn't anyone who looked like me. And so this book, we have chosen 36 Jewish people from history, some who are still with us today, who are diverse across like every sense of that word. And we would try to be really intentional to create a balance in this book of folks who represent different races and ethnicities, who lived in different parts of the world, who engaged in Jewish values through very different types of work. And certainly this book could have multiple volumes and continuations later on. We could only choose 36 for this, but I think it's a really solid place to start.
Oh, absolutely. Actually, that's an excellent thought to have, as there's so many people that this is volume 1, volume 2 to come next year, and then volume 3. So very exciting, because these are really names that stand out in history that maybe we'll learn about some new ones, but we're also going to perhaps be amazed that, oh my goodness, they are this and they happen to be Jewish, but all of that's very integrated and important.
Very much so. And those are honestly the most, I think, hilarious and like affirming moments that we've had with folks who are reading this book for the first time, of hearing people exclaim like, oh my gosh, like Tracee Ellis Ross, I didn't know she was Jewish. And like, oh my gosh, this person, I didn't know they were Jewish. And we've just gotten such a kick out of that. But we're actually hoping to hear a lot of those responses and hoping that it piques people's curiosity to want to continue to learn more.
Yes, to learn, because, as you said, because you are Korean American, that people would invariably say, well, you don't look Jewish, like Jewish really does have a look. Obviously, yes, to understand diversity. But when you are, if someone says, and I'm sure they have said that to you, how does that make you feel?
Oh, I mean, it makes me feel incredibly othered. And that's something that I've been hearing my entire life, which is also why I was so adamant about keeping this title of what Jewish looks like. Because when I hear, oh, Liz, like, you don't look Jewish, the response I want to go to is like, okay, what? Well, first of all, I am, so I don't really know what to do about that for you. But then what do you mean? Like when you close your eyes and you picture somebody Jewish, who do you picture? And why is that? And maybe that also means that you might have to spend some time reflecting on biases or stereotypes that you've accumulated about who Jewish people are and how we look or present or where we live or what we believe in or how we behave, because we are not a monolithic community, even though we're very small.
Yes, and yet small because it's I forget the exact millions, but it's not huge when you consider the world, and yet the creativity, all that the contributions to our world that has come from the Jewish people is amazing.
Yeah, I think according to Pew, there are around 15 million Jewish people worldwide. And if we're thinking about that in terms of world population, that's 0.2%. Within the United States, Jewish people make up about 2% of our population. And trying to frame that to folks, like even if the global Jewish community doubled in size, we would still not be 1% of the world's population. However, based on how we are often portrayed, as well as other, geopolitical events happening in the world. I think a lot of folks are led to believe that we are a lot bigger than we are when we're very much not.
Yes, I know that is something that just is mind-boggling, and why then I feel it's important, although this is me projecting, I think it's important to have a book like this and to start at the young age. Although, we at any age, I love children's books. I've always loved children's books. So we're never too old to enjoy what's there. And it's written in such a way that we are all going to get something from it. But the young kids, the young generation is able to get it and learn. And that's where planting these seeds and really learning to appreciate and recognize and, well, accept and be kind really starts.
Absolutely. I think when we wait till children are like get older, you're waiting to adulthood, there also has to be this process of unlearning all of those assumptions. And oftentimes I find that unlearning is so much harder. It takes so much more effort and energy, so much more cognitive dissonance. It can be a far more arduous process than just learning new information. And so, like you're saying, if we're able to start this at a young age, these ideas, these conversations become very normalized. They don't have to feel really scary. They don't have to make you feel like ashamed of being ignorant in the past or anything like that. And I do hope that there are people both within the Jewish community, outside of the Jewish community, children, adults who are able to get something new out of this book.
Oh, I truly hope so too. We can't help but learn something like just choosing Tracee Ellis Ross, having people react like, oh, I didn't know she was Jewish. I mean, that shows that definitely there's a great space to really become more aware and more informed.
Absolutely. And our book is full of people like that.
36. And so you had that challenge of just choosing 36 so that there's going to be more volumes, we expect, we hope, fingers crossed.
We have a very extensive spreadsheet. But there was a lot of tracking that went into this when we were trying to figure out who should be highlighted. And we had to make some tough decisions.
And did it cause some, like, kind of, did you have to bargain with each other in terms of who to choose?
I don't know if bargain. Caroline and I are also like very dear friends. Like we have a really strong friendship and we work really well. And I think we also communicate really well together. And we had this shared goal of creating balance in this book to make sure in terms of like gender representation and like folks who identify as queer and Jewish people of color. That's why we had this very extensive spreadsheet to make sure that we could kind of zoom out from a more objective standpoint and think about, all right, who are we centering? Might we be missing in this case? Because our goal is really for Jewish people of lots of different backgrounds and identities to be able to see this book and for it to serve as a mirror for themselves in some way.
And that's an important point. I mean, you can't say a Jewish person and it's fits into this little box because there's 50 million Jewish people, 50 million different types and personalities and characteristics and such, right?
Yeah,
Basic, yeah.
absolutely. There are so many different ways to be Jewish, and we really want to make sure that Jewish and non-Jewish readers alike understand that there is no one right way to be Jewish. And that can come out in your cultural or religious practices, the type of observance. It can mean so many different things. And there are so many different like sub-ethnicities and subcultures within the Jewish community worldwide too. It always makes me think of that phrase like same, but different. And I think that very much applies here.
Yes, I can really appreciate that, and we just need to see this, and I hope it will help us to learn because sadly but tragically we see such divisiveness, but if we would really stand back and take a breath and observe, we'd see, oh my gosh, we're just really, there's so many similarities along with having the differences, and they're all good. It all contributes to making a better world.
Yeah,
Right?
absolutely.
Yeah.
And not just within the Jewish community too. I think if you look at the world and, the types of discrimination and bias that other groups are also experiencing, because so much of that just comes from ignorance, if we're able to really stretch ourselves as learners and commit to learning about communities and people who are different, hopefully we wouldn't find ourselves in some of the predicaments that we find ourselves in today.
Exactly. Which is why, with your working in an elementary school, so preschool to eighth grade, that's just such an ideal age to be able to reach students who in turn, the parents are there too, but to start young and be just open and be able to communicate and present ideas when it's fresh. So like you said, we don't have to undo them later on, but just see how wonderful and special each individual is.
Very
Right?
much so. Couldn't have said it better.
Oh, well, I mean, obviously the book and the whole concept is resonating with me, that this is really so important. We just owe it to ourselves, but we owe it to our children and future generations to really embrace this and make this be a part of it. I mean, it just seems like it seems easy. Obviously it's not because we're not there.
In theory, it's easy.
I guess that's it. But I think then this adds to the theory. This is how to begin to make it happen and work. Right, Liz?
Absolutely. I think we can often just start with this idea of, what do I think I know about a community of people? What is factual and what might be an assumption? What am I learning directly from people in this community? What are things that I be absorbing anecdotally or through, secondhand sources that maybe are not the most accurate, and getting to align what you think you know with, what information is actually out there. I think it was Maya Angelou who talked about, we do the best with what we have. And when you know better, you do better. And being able to seek out sources like this and really try to educate yourself and fill in those awareness gaps that you have, that's ultimately like each and every one of our own responsibilities. That's not anybody else's, that's ours.
And in the classrooms, to have this and to have a space where kids can ask questions and really have a conversation so that they don't come away with just or think strange thoughts and not have them dispelled, so that that's what I think is happening here, is that we tell the good story, show this diversity of people and the possibilities we have.
Absolutely. And a lot of the teaching that I do, I use what's called like an inquiry-based framework. So it's often starting with that question of what do we think we know about someone or something or a community or an idea? What questions do we have? And as we then track our own learning, what are we actually recognizing where we have misconceptions, and how are we trying to unlearn that misinformation and trying to teach ourselves something new. I think there's no better time to be able to do that than with young people because granted, like with how culture and communication and conflict seems to be operating in mainstream spaces these days, it can be really scary to ask the question that you might fear everybody else knows this and I'm the only one who doesn't. But chances are, if you have that question, somebody else does too. And if I make a mistake, am I going to be shamed for it? Are people going to stop talking to me because of that? And I think, especially in elementary school, this is kind of one of the only times of life where you can kind of showcase that ignorance and you're held and you're supported and you're guided in that learning process rather than, the way that unfortunately a lot of other folks tend to deal with conflict or ignorance as we get older. But we really want to show that mistakes and ignorance are things that can be remedied, that there is support and resources out there for whatever it is that you might need. And somebody asking for those things, I think, is quite an act of bravery and vulnerability. And I hope that folks remember that.
Oh, yes, that is so wonderful and amazing, and I would wish this for all children in those formative years and grades to have that and to have that safe space. We know, of course, that's a challenge in our world. So, yes, to keep creating this and working toward it and doing so, trusting to shift that balance so it is safer and a place of growth and nurturing. Yes.
Yeah. And I will say that I also hope that these adults in children's lives also continue to nurture that too, because
Yes.
I have also found working in education that sometimes when there is I don't know if it's a disconnect or just that children are talking about issues with language that's different than how we grew up. I especially think about work around, like, I'm the director of diversity, equity, and inclusion at my school, that having like DEI centered conversations or even like positions like mine was not super common when I was growing up. And so when adults are hearing their kids talk about racial identity or gender identities or religious identities, it can feel kind of alarming because it feels really foreign. But we also know that we can't solve problems in our communities if we're not able to identify what they are and if we're not able to talk about them. And as we always say, these kids are going to grow up, they're going to be our leaders. And what kind of world are we leaving for them to inherit? I feel like this is the gift that we can give, is being able to model our own learning and our own vulnerability and ability to like lean into these conversations and lessons.
Oh, yes. Oh, absolutely. You are so wonderful for the position that you have. I can just feel this is the way you speak and the books that you provide for us. This is just all so stimulating, and it's just all it has that integrity of everything just flowing back and forth and really working to make the world better. So thank you, Liz Kleinrock, for doing that work. Very important.
Thank you. Thank you for saying that. Thank you for seeing me. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. It's the way I see it and the way I feel. So there. So getting back to the book, What Jewish Looks Like, was there one of the featured personalities that you felt most strongly about or just really stood out that you felt needed to be included or in some way stands out for you?
Sure. There are, I feel very attached to all of these people. Off the top of my head, one of the first who I knew I wanted to include in this book was a woman named Ruby Myers. She was Indian and Jewish, and she was one of the biggest movie stars in India's silent film industry. She later, like when the industry moved from silent films to talking features, taught herself like different regional dialects and languages. She was absolutely incredible and stunning, and it's been really amazing to learn from her. There was also a man named August Bondy who was born in Austria, who moved to the United States around the time of the Civil War, and he became a staunch abolitionist. His home was part of the Underground Railroad, and being able to learn really specifically about white or white presenting Jewish abolitionist and anti-racist, given the work that I do, was also really, really exciting. And then last but not least, Rabbi Angela Buchdahl, because she's Korean American ordained rabbi. She leads Central Synagogue in New York City. I've had the privilege of working with her congregation. So from a mirror perspective, as one Korean American Jewish person to another, it's really exciting for me to see her in here.
Oh, that is wonderful. And I would imagine she feels probably specifically honored to be part of the book as well.
I think so. I hope so.
Yeah, I would imagine so. And it feels as though it would be a real important connection for you, too, because, again, while we want to really connect across all kinds of boundaries, when we do see ourselves reflected in someone else, that does really, it just feels a little more special, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And I think it also does an enormous amount of increasing feelings of belonging. For those who might feel kind of on the margins within their communities. And it also hopefully will have folks who occupy a more like dominant identity within the Jewish community to consider, how are my Jewish spaces, maybe the synagogue or the Hebrew school or the summer camp, or, a nonprofit that I volunteer in. What can we do then to make sure that we are being as inclusive as possible?
Mm-hmm. Right. Well, this is truly such a beautiful book, for one. You also had another collaborator, the artist who did the artwork for the book, who's done an incredible work as well.
Yeah, Iris is amazing. Iris Gottlieb, they are incredibly talented. I think as soon as we saw their portfolio, we were like, oh no, this is the person. They're amazing. And they also have another really incredible book called Seeing Gender, which is what we had been familiar with before. And just being able to see how they were able to take these really sometimes complex, like abstract ideas and communicate them so beautifully in drawings. Yeah, it was just like, no, this is our person.
Yeah.
We got to make this work.
Yeah. So the book is just so new and timely in the sense of to be used now in classrooms with our kids reading together. I always love that idea. That's when we learn, as adults, do learn a lot too, in part because maybe it's new information, but also with the conversation that we can have with our kiddos about what we're reading and what we're seeing. So, just a great book to have in general. But, thinking of the holidays upcoming, what an incredible gift to share with someone special in our life.
Thank you. Yeah, we hope that this is the book to give to bar mitzvahs, Hanukkah in a couple of months. Yeah.
Yes, all of that. And so that's a focus on those who are Jewish. But again, because we want to reach across boundaries and to learn, be considering this to, our neighbor is Jewish, or I go to school with someone who's Jewish. Let's get this book, because we're going to learn more and really become that much more aware. So that's another way to regard it, I think.
Absolutely. And in the front of the book, I'm really proud of the front matter that we've included, where we have laid out some like really big questions, but that are also really common that I think people have about Jewish people. Like, what is Judaism? How many Jewish people are there? What is anti-Semitism? Where did Jews live? And being able to answer those really clearly, but also through illustrations as well. So they're going to certainly be things that I think will resonate with kids, but I think also with adults who just might not have the answers to these questions too.
Yes, I think, yes, adults don't have all the answers. And that's where we might feel embarrassed to say, what is that? Because, oh no, I should know because I'm an adult. So yes, that's such, again, an easy way to learn and become more aware. So you and Caroline have done such a great work with this, Liz. I'm so grateful for this book. And you're so prolific, which you ought to be, because we can see these results. So I'm looking forward to another conversation with you down the road.
Yes, thank you so much. I'd love to have that again.
I as well. And so the book, again, get it at your favorite book sources. It's readily available. And enjoy and learn and grow. Right?
Thank you so much, Kate. I appreciate the conversation.
And you as well. Be well. Thank you. That brings us to the end of a very full hour of Inspirational Women with Liz Kleinrock and Sunday Morning Magazine with Cynthia Leitek-Smith. I'm Kate Daniels, your host, and I greatly appreciate your sharing this hour with me and these special guests. For details you might have missed or information you'd like to know, please just send me an email, kated@warm1069.com, and I will get right back to you. Also, if you'd like to listen again or to share these important stories with your family and friends, find the podcast on our Warm 1069 webpage. Just click on the Listen tab, then Podcasts, then either of the show names, and then look for the guest names. I now wish you and your family a day of finding the beauty in the diversity of our community, of the world. Have a week of the same, and then please plan to join me again next weekend for another hour of Sunday Morning Magazine and Inspirational Women on Warm 1069. Good morning and happy fall.